The stars had never seen such a fleet. Admiral Varth Kaln stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Judgment, and watched the darkness of space fill with ships. They came from 12 worlds. They spoke 12 languages. They had fought each other for 10,000 years. But today, they stood as one. The Concord of 12 had made its decision. Humanity would die. Vorith was old, even by Sithrani standards. His blue skin had faded to gray over 400 years of war. His 4 eyes had watched planets burn and species beg for mercy. He had never lost a battle. He had never felt fear. But something about this mission bothered him. Something small. Something he could not name. "Admiral," said his second-in-command, a tall female named Sitha. "All ships report ready. 12,000 vessels await your command." Vorith nodded slowly. 12,000 ships. It was the largest fleet in galactic history. Enough firepower to crack moons and boil oceans. The Concord had sent this armada to destroy a single species on a single world. Some called it excessive. Vorath called it necessary. He had studied the humans for decades. He had watched their wars through long-range sensors. He had seen them kill each other over lines on maps, over words in books, over the color of their skin. They were violent. They were chaotic. They were dangerous. And now they had built ships that could reach the stars. The Concord had debated for 50 years. Some wanted to welcome humans into the galactic community. Others wanted to watch and wait. But when human colony ships crossed into Concord space 3 months ago, the debate ended. The vote was unanimous. Humans were a threat. Threats must be eliminated. "Open a channel to Earth," Varth commanded. "Let them see what comes for them." The communication screen flickered to life. Varth expected to see panic. He expected crying leaders and terrified soldiers. He expected the humans to fall on their knees and beg for their lives. Instead, he saw a woman. She sat in a simple chair in a simple room. Her hair was gray and cut short. Her uniform was plain green with no medals or decorations. Her dark eyes looked directly into the screen with an expression Varth could not read. "I am Admiral Varth Kaln of the Concord of 12, he announced. "You have violated our space. You have threatened our peace. For these crimes, your species has been sentenced to death. You have 1 rotation of your planet to surrender. If you do not, we will reduce your world to ash." He waited. The woman said nothing. She simply looked at him. Then she turned to someone off screen. "Did you hear that? 12,000 ships." A voice answered. "That's it?" The woman looked back at Varth. And then she did something that made his blood run cold. She laughed. It was not a nervous laugh. It was not a fake laugh. It was the real laugh of someone who had just heard a very good joke. Her whole body shook with it. She wiped tears from her eyes. "I'm sorry," she said, still smiling. "I'm sorry. That was rude. It's just, we've been waiting for this for a very long time." "And 12,000? She shook her head. "We expected more." Voreth felt his hands tighten on the arms of his chair. "You do not understand. We will kill every human. Every man, woman, and child. Your cities will burn. Your history will be erased. Your species will be forgotten." The woman stopped smiling, but she did not look afraid. She looked almost sad. "My name is General Miriam Torres," she said, "and I want you to remember something, Admiral. Remember this moment. Remember my face. Because one day soon, you're going to wish you had turned those ships around." The screen went black. Vorath sat in silence. Around him, his officers exchanged nervous glances. No species had ever responded to a Concord death sentence like this. No species had ever laughed. "Admiral?" Sitha asked carefully. "Your orders?" Varth pushed his doubts aside. Madness was not a defense. Confidence was not a weapon. The humans were simply too stupid to understand their danger. Begin the invasion, he said. Destroy their outer colonies first. Let them watch their people die. Let them learn fear. The fleet moved forward. 12,000 ships, carrying 2 million soldiers, armed with weapons that could split atoms and tear holes in space. They were the greatest military force ever assembled. Surely, nothing could stop them. On Earth, General Torres walked out of the communication room and into a hallway filled with officers. They looked at her with questions in their eyes. Well? Asked Colonel David Park, her oldest friend and most trusted advisor. What did they say? Same thing they always say, Torres replied. Surrender or die. Very dramatic. Nice ships, though. How long do we have? 1 day, officially. But they'll hit the outer colonies first. They want to scare us. She smiled again, but this time it was a different kind of smile. Harder, colder. They think we don't know fear. Park raised an eyebrow. Don't we? Torres stopped walking. She looked out a window at the blue sky of Earth. Somewhere up there, beyond the clouds, death was coming. 12,000 ships filled with aliens who wanted to wipe humanity from existence. She thought about her daughter, who was 7 years old and loved dinosaurs. She thought about her mother, who was 83 and still planted tomatoes every spring. She thought about the billions of people on this planet who had never asked for a war with aliens. Yes, she knew fear, but fear was an old friend. Humans had lived with fear since they first climbed down from the trees. Fear of the dark. Fear of the cold. Fear of each other. They had learned to take that fear and turn it into something else. Determination. Anger. Will. Tell me something, David, she said quietly. In all of human history, what happens when someone tells us we can't do something? What happens when someone says we should give up? Park smiled. He understood. We proved them wrong. Torres nodded. Get me the Defense Council. Get me the President. Get me every general, every admiral, every leader we have. She turned away from the window. The galaxy came to kill us. Let's show them why that was a mistake. As she walked away, Park looked out at the sky one last time. Somewhere in the back of his mind, he felt sorry for the aliens. They had no idea what was coming. They had studied human weapons. They had counted human ships. They had calculated human strength, but they had never understood human spirit. And that would be their greatest mistake. Lieutenant Silas Venn had a problem. He was the youngest intelligence officer in the Concorde fleet, and his job was simple. Understand the enemy. Learn how they think. Find their weaknesses. Give the admirals what they needed to win. But humans made no sense. Silas sat in his small office surrounded by screens. Each screen showed something different. Human news broadcasts. Human social networks. Human communications intercepted from their primitive satellites. He had expected to see fear. He had expected to see chaos. He had expected to see a species preparing to die. Instead, he saw something that made his head hurt. They were making jokes. This cannot be right, he muttered to himself. His translator was working perfectly. The words were clear, but the meaning escaped him. On one screen, a human news anchor was explaining the invasion to millions of viewers. The situation was serious, she said. The threat was real. But then she smiled and said, on the bright side, at least we finally have proof we're not alone in the universe. Take that, skeptics. The audience laughed. On another screen, humans were sharing images with strange text on them. One showed an alien ship with the words, "They came 12,000 light years to catch these hands." Another showed a human soldier with the caption, "Pav. You're an alien who just found out humans invented war before they invented writing." Silas did not understand what catching hands meant. He did not understand what PAV stood for, but he understood that humans were not afraid. They were excited. His door opened. Archivist Cal walked in, her gray robes rustling against the floor. She was Morvathi, a species known for their love of knowledge and their hatred of violence. Her large black eyes scanned the screens with growing concern. "You called for me," she said. "What have you found?" Silas pointed at the screens. "Madness. Complete madness. Look at this." One screen showed a young human female in a metal workshop. She was welding armor plates onto a small cargo ship while loud, aggressive music played in the background. She was broadcasting this to millions of viewers. "She's a civilian," Silas explained. "No military training. No combat experience. She's turning a cargo ship into a weapon because she wants to fight us." "Perhaps she has no choice," Kel suggested. "Perhaps their military is forcing citizens to fight." "No, look at the comments." Silas pointed to the stream of text below the video. "Other humans are cheering her on. They're giving her advice. They're asking if they can join her." Kel leaned closer. Her expression grew troubled. "Show me more," she said. Fyl showed her everything. He showed her the betting pools where humans wagered money on how many alien ships they would destroy. He showed her the songs humans had written about the invasion, turning their possible extinction into entertainment. He showed her children playing games where they pretended to fight aliens, laughing and cheering. "This is not normal behavior," Silas said. "Every species we have ever conquered showed fear. They cried. They prayed. They tried to run. But humans are treating this like a game." Kel was quiet for a long moment. Then she said something that Silas would never forget. "Perhaps that is because, to them, it is." Before Silas could ask what she meant, alarms rang through the ship. The first battle had begun. Admiral Varath watched from his command center as the Concorde fleet approached the human colony on Mars. It was a small settlement, maybe 50,000 humans. They had only 3 ships to defend themselves. This would be over quickly. "Enemy vessels approaching," reported his sensor officer. 3 ships, small, lightly armed. "They are accelerating directly toward our formation." Varath frowned. "Standard tactics said the humans should retreat. They should protect their colony from a distance. They should buy time for evacuation. Instead, they were attacking." "They must be desperate," Sita said. "A final act of defiance before death." Varath nodded. "Target them. Destroy them." The Concorde ships opened fire. Hundreds of energy beams lanced through space toward the 3 human vessels. And then the humans did something impossible. They flew directly into the beams. The Concorde weapons were designed for precision. They targeted specific points on enemy ships, hitting engines and weapons and shields. But the human pilots moved erratically, spinning and rolling and diving in patterns that no sane pilot would attempt. 2 human ships exploded. But the third one slipped through. It crashed directly into a Concorde cruiser. The explosion was massive. The cruiser broke apart, and 2 ships next to it were badly damaged. 1,000 Concorde soldiers died in seconds. Varath stared at the destruction. Did they crash on purpose? "It appears so," Sitha said quietly. "They sacrificed themselves to destroy 1 ship. That's insane." "Yes, Admiral. It is." The battle for Mars continued. The colonists fought with weapons that should not have worried the Concorde. Old guns, homemade explosives, mining equipment turned into weapons, but they fought without fear. They fought without hesitation. When 1 human fell, another took their place. When their defenses crumbled, they charged forward instead of retreating. A Concorde commander sent a report to Varath. "They're laughing, Admiral. We're killing them, and they're laughing." The colony fell eventually. It had to. The numbers were too uneven. But the Concorde lost 15 ships and 3,000 soldiers, taking a settlement they should have conquered in minutes. That night, Silas Venn presented his report to Admiral Varath. His hands were shaking. "Sir, I have studied every species the Concorde has ever fought. None of them behaved like this. When facing certain death, All species show fear. It is basic biology. It is survival instinct. And humans? Scylla swallowed. Humans seem to have broken their survival instinct. Or perhaps they never had one. They do not fear death. They joke about it. They run toward it. They treat war like... He struggled to find the words. Like it is something they have been waiting for. Vorath dismissed him. But later, alone in his quarters, the Admiral thought about what he had seen. The human pilot who had crashed into his ship. The colonists who had fought to the last breath. The strange jokes and songs and games. For the first time in 400 years, Vorath felt something cold in his chest. Thought it was not fear. Not yet. But it was the beginning of doubt. Somewhere in the darkness of space, heading toward Earth, a human message broadcast on all frequencies. It was addressed to the Concorde fleet. The message was simple. That was Mars. Wait until you see what Earth is waiting for you. And then, at the end of the message, there was laughter. Just laughter. Vorath turned off the broadcast and stared at the stars. What kind of species laughed at its own death? He was about to find out. Admiral Vorath could not sleep. 3 weeks had passed since the invasion began. 3 weeks of battles. 3 weeks of victories that felt like defeats. The Concorde had taken every human colony outside Earth. They had killed thousands of humans. They had pushed closer and closer to the blue planet, but something was wrong. Vorath sat alone in his private study, surrounded by screens filled with human history. He had ordered his archivist to find everything. Every war. Every battle. Every conflict in human existence. What he found kept him awake at night. Humans had never stopped fighting. Not once. Not ever. They had fought over land. They had fought over water. They had fought over gold and oil and ideas. They had fought over gods they could not see and borders they had drawn themselves. They had even fought over the shape of balls they kicked for entertainment. But that was not the part that scared Vorath. The part that scared him was how they fought. He read about a place called Stalingrad, where humans had fought in frozen ruins for months, eating rats and melting snow, refusing to surrender, even when surrender was the only logical choice. He read about a place called Thermopylae, where 300 humans had held a narrow pass against an army of thousands, dying to the last man to buy time for their people. He read about something called the Blitz, where humans had lived underground while explosives fell from the sky every night. They had kept going to work. They had kept raising their children. They had made jokes about the bombs. Always the jokes. Admiral? Vorath looked up. Archivist Kel stood in his doorway, a data tablet in her hands. She looked tired. She looked worried. "Come in," he said. "Tell me what you found." Kel walked slowly to his desk. She had been studying humans longer than anyone in the fleet. She understood them better than anyone, and she was afraid. "I have completed my analysis," she said quietly. "I believe I understand why humans behave as they do." "Then explain it to me." Kel set her tablet on the desk. It showed a timeline of human history, marked with red dots. There were thousands of red dots. "Each red mark represents a war," she said. "In the last 5,000 years of human civilization, there have been approximately 15,000 armed conflicts. That is an average of 3 new wars every single year." Vorath stared at the timeline. "That's impossible. How could any species survive that much violence?" "They almost didn't. Several times." Kel pulled up another image. "This is a human weapon called a nuclear bomb. They invented it roughly 400 years ago. Within a decade, they had built enough of these weapons to destroy their own planet multiple times. And they used them against each other? Twice, on their own cities." Kel's voice was steady but sad. "They killed hundreds of thousands of their own kind in seconds. And then they built more bombs. They pointed them at each other for decades. They called it mutually assured destruction. They treated their own extinction as an acceptable risk. Vorath felt sick. They're insane. No, Kel said. They're survivors. She pulled up more images. Ice ages that had frozen their planet. Plagues that had killed half their population. Asteroids that had nearly ended all life on their world. Humans have faced extinction many times, Kel explained. And every single time, they survived. Not through peace. Not through cooperation. Through stubbornness. Through refusal to die. They are the descendants of those who fought when fighting was hopeless, who kept going when stopping was easier. Vorath was silent for a long moment. Then he asked a question that had been burning in his mind for weeks. Can we beat them? Kel did not answer immediately. She looked at the screens around them, at the endless records of human violence and human survival. We assumed humans were primitive because they fight among themselves, she finally said. We were wrong. They fight among themselves because they are never not at war. Conflict is their natural state. Peace is the exception. War is the rule. That doesn't answer my question. I know. Kel met his eyes. Here is my answer, Admiral. When humans fight each other, they are divided. Nation against nation. Tribe against tribe. But when humans face a common enemy, when something threatens all of them at once, she paused. They unite. And when humanity unites, they have conquered every obstacle in their path. Every ice age. Every plague. Every disaster. Every enemy. She pointed at the fleet status display on Vorath's wall. It showed their losses. 43 ships destroyed. 6,000 soldiers dead. All from taking a few small colonies. We gave them something precious, Admiral. We gave them a common enemy. We made them stop fighting each other and start fighting us. Vorath stared at the display. He thought about the human pilot who had crashed into his cruiser. He thought about the colonists who had fought with mining tools and homemade bombs. He thought about the laughter that echoed through every battle. What do we do? He asked. Kel shook her head. I am an alchemist, not a general. But I can tell you what I believe. Tell me. I believe we made a terrible mistake. I believe we woke something that should have been left sleeping. She picked up her tablet and walked toward the door. And I believe that Earth is not going to be what we expect. She left. Vorath sat alone in the darkness, surrounded by the ghosts of human history far away. On the blue planet called Earth, General Miriam Torres stood in a bunker deep underground. Around her, screens showed the status of something called Project Prometheus. Is it ready? She asked. Colonel Park nodded. It's been ready for 200 years. We've just been waiting for the right moment. Torres smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone about to show their cards after a very long game. The aliens think they know us, she said. They've read our history. They've seen our wars. They think they understand. They don't? No. Torres looked at the screens, at the weapons humanity had built in secret, at the plans they had made for exactly this moment. They've seen what we do to each other. They haven't seen what we do to outsiders. She pressed a button. Across the solar system, hidden systems began to wake up. Send them a message, Torres said. Tell them we're done playing. Tell them it's time to show them why this planet is still ours after 4 billion years. She looked up at the ceiling, imagining the alien fleet somewhere above. Tell them humanity says hello. The first sign that something had changed came at midnight. Admiral Vorath was on his bridge when the alarms started screaming. Red lights flashed. Officers ran to their stations. The calm of space turned to chaos in seconds. Report. Vorath shouted. Sif's face was pale. Admiral, we're detecting weapon signatures. Hundreds of them. They're appearing throughout the solar system. From where? The human fleet is still near Earth. Not ships, sir. Sif's hands were shaking as she worked her console. They're platforms. Weapons platforms. Hidden in asteroids. In moons. In empty space. They've been there the whole time. We never saw them. Vorath felt ice in his veins. Show me. The main screen lit up with a map of the solar system. Red dots appeared everywhere. Behind the fleet. Around the fleet. In front of the fleet. They were surrounded by weapons they had never detected. How is this possible? Vorath demanded. Our sensors are the best in the galaxy. The platforms were hidden, sir. Buried. Silent. They've been waiting. Siva looked at him with something close to horror. The humans knew we were coming. They've known for a long time. Before Vorath could respond, the platforms opened fire. Light filled the screen. Beams of pure energy lanced through space, tearing into Concorde ships. Explosions bloomed like flowers across the fleet. In seconds, dozens of ships vanished in fire. Return fire! Vorath screamed. All ships return fire! But the platforms were fast. They moved in ways that should have been impossible, dodging weapons and striking back. And they were not alone. From Earth, a wave of human ships launched into space. Not the clumsy vessels the Concorde had seen before. These were different. Sleek, fast, armed with weapons that burned holes through shields like paper. The humans had been hiding their true strength. Vorath watched his fleet die. Ships that had conquered worlds were reduced to debris. Soldiers who had never known fear screamed as their vessels broke apart around them. And through it all, the humans were broadcasting. Music, strange, loud, aggressive music. And voices. Human voices, laughing and cheering as they flew into battle. Yeehaw! Come get some, you squid-faced freaks. For Mars. For the colonies. For humanity. Hey, Admiral, your ships taste like chicken. Vorath did not understand what chicken was. He did not understand why humans screamed such strange things in battle. But he understood one thing clearly. He was losing in 3 hours. The Concorde lost 2,000 ships. 2,000 ships. Gone. Destroyed by a species they had called primitive. A species they had come to exterminate. The retreat was chaos. Vorath ordered his remaining ships to pull back, to regroup, to form a defensive line. But humans chased them. Human pilots flew directly into Concorde formations. Weapons blazing, laughing as they died. One human captain, a woman named Sarah Chun, led her damaged cruiser directly into the heart of a Concorde battle group. Her ship was on fire. Her crew was mostly dead, but she kept fighting. Vorath received her final transmission. Admiral Vorath, she said through the static. Her face was burned. Her voice was weak. But she was smiling. My grandmother survived the Third World War. My mother survived the resource crisis. My daughter will survive this. You're dying, Vorath said. He did not understand why he answered. He did not understand why he felt anything at all. Yes, Chun agreed. But I'm taking your flagship escort with me. Fair trade, I think. Her ship exploded. When the light faded, 3 Concorde cruisers were gone. The Concorde retreated to the edge of the solar system. Of the 12,000 ships that had arrived, only 4,000 remained. 30,000 soldiers were dead. Dozens of commanders had been killed. Vorath stood alone on his bridge. His officers were silent. His fleet was broken. Lieutenant Silas Van approached carefully. Admiral, I've intercepted more human communications. I don't want to hear their jokes. It's not a joke, sir. Silas handed him a data tablet. It's a message from General Torres. Addressed to you personally. Vorath took the tablet. The message was short. That was just the beginning. We haven't even shown you Earth's defenses yet. But I'll give you a choice, Admiral. You can keep fighting and watch your entire fleet die. Or you can talk. One conversation. Just you and me. Come to Earth alone. I promise safe passage. Think about it. Vorath read the message 3 times. Then he threw the tablet across the bridge. She thinks I'll surrender? After what they did to my fleet? Sir, Silas said quietly, I don't think she's asking for surrender. I think she's offering something else. What could she possibly offer? Silas hesitated. Then he said something that changed everything. A way out. For both sides. Voreth wanted to refuse. Every instinct told him to fight. To gather his remaining ships and attack Earth with everything they had. But he thought about the hidden weapons. The secret ships. The humans who laughed as they died. He thought about Archivist Kell's words. They've conquered every obstacle in their path. What else were they hiding? Voreth looked out at the stars. Earth hung in the distance, blue and green and beautiful. It looked peaceful from here. It looked harmless, but it wasn't. It was a world forged in fire, home to a species born in blood. A species that had fought itself for thousands of years and had learned to turn that violence outward. The Concord had come to destroy humanity. Instead, humanity had destroyed the Concord's pride. Sir? Sci-Fi asked. What do we do? Voreth was silent for a long time. He thought about his 400 years of war. He thought about every species he had conquered. He thought about every enemy that had begged for mercy. Humans had not begged. Humans had laughed. Maybe it was time to understand why. Prepare my shuttle, Voreth said finally. I'm going to Earth. Sci-Fi stared at him. Sir, you can't be serious. I am. Voreth turned to face his crew. I've spent my whole life fighting enemies I understood. I've never lost. But I don't understand humans. And I'm starting to think that if I don't understand them, I never will beat them. He walked toward the door. Besides, he added, looking back one last time, I'm old. I'm tired. And I want to know what's so funny. He left the bridge. Behind him, his officers watched him go, wondering if they would ever see him again. The shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere alone. Admiral Voreth watched through the window as clouds parted around him. He had expected to see a world scarred by war, covered in weapons and defenses. Instead, he saw green forests and blue oceans. He saw cities filled with lights. He saw children playing in parks and farmers working in fields. Life, ordinary life, continuing despite everything. A human voice crackled through his communicator. Admiral Voreth, you are cleared for landing. Welcome to Earth. The shuttle touched down on a simple landing pad outside a small building. No soldiers surrounded him. No weapons pointed at his ship. Just open ground and clear sky. General Torres was waiting for him. She looked older than she had on the screen. More tired. But she still had that strange expression he could not read. That look of someone who knew something he did not. You came, she said. I wasn't sure you would. Voreth stepped out of his shuttle. He had left his weapons behind. He felt naked without them. I came to understand, he said. I have been fighting for 400 years. I have never lost. But I don't know how to fight an enemy I can't understand. Torres nodded. Follow me. She led him into the building. It was not a military base. It was a house. A simple human house with wooden floors and soft furniture and pictures on the walls. Torres sat in a chair and pointed to another chair across from her. Voreth sat. Whiskey? She asked, lifting a glass bottle filled with amber liquid. I don't know what that is. Humans drink it to celebrate. Also to mourn. Also just because it's Tuesday. She poured 2 glasses and handed one to Voreth. Try it. Voreth sipped the liquid. It burned his throat. It tasted like fire and smoke, and something he could not name. This is poison, he said. Torres laughed. Yes, we drink it anyway. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Voreth asked the question that had haunted him for weeks. Why aren't you afraid? Torres set down her glass. She looked at him with those dark eyes that had seen so much. We are afraid, she said. We're terrified. Every human on this planet is scared. We've been scared since your fleet appeared in our sky. But you laughed. You joked. You flew into battle like it was a game. Yes, because that's how we survive. Torres stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the sun was setting. The sky burned orange and gold. Let me tell you about humans, Admiral. We evolved on a planet that tried to kill us every single day. Predators hunted us. Diseases destroyed us. The weather froze us and burned us. We should have died 1,000 times. She turned to face him. But we didn't. Because we learned something. We learned that fear is just a feeling. You can feel it and still fight. You can be terrified and still keep going. And the best way to fight fear is to laugh at it. Varth thought about this. He thought about the human pilot who had crashed into his ship, laughing as she died. He thought about the colonists who had made jokes while their world burned. That's insane, he said. Maybe, but it works. Torres sat back down. Every species runs from danger. Every species surrenders when the odds are bad. But humans? We've been fighting bad odds our entire existence. We don't know how to surrender. It's not in our blood. So what happens now? Varth asked. My fleet is broken. Your world is safe. Do you want me to beg for mercy? Do you want me to surrender? Torres shook her head. No. Then what do you want? She leaned forward. I want you to understand something, Admiral. Humans don't want to destroy the Concord. We don't want to conquer the galaxy. We don't want revenge. Then what do you want? We want in. Voreth blinked. What? We want to join. The Concord. The galactic community. We want to trade with you. Explore with you. Learn from you. Build with you. Tor smiled. We didn't fight you because we hate you. We fought you because you didn't give us a choice. Varth was silent for a long time. He had expected demands, threats, conditions. He had expected humans to be like every other species, hungry for power, desperate for control. He had not expected this. Why would you want to join us? He finally asked. We came to kill you. Yes, and now you won't. Torres shrugged. That's how humans make friends. We fight first. Then we drink together. Then we figure out how to make things work. She refilled his glass. You made a mistake, Admiral. You thought humans were dangerous because we're violent. But violence isn't what makes us dangerous. Hope is. We hope even when hope is stupid. We believe in tomorrow, even when tomorrow looks impossible. That's why we laughed. Because if we're going to die, we might as well die happy. Voreth looked at his glass. He thought about everything he had seen, everything he had learned, everything he had been wrong about. My people will not understand, he said quietly. They will want blood. They will want revenge for what you did to our fleet. Maybe, Torres agreed. But you understand now. That's a start. She raised her glass. The Concord came to kill us. You lost 30,000 soldiers. You lost 8,000 ships. And here you are, drinking poison in my living room. She smiled. Tell your people that story. Tell them what you saw. Tell them humans are crazy and violent and impossible to understand. And what will that accomplish? It will make them curious. Torres clinked her glass against his. Curiosity is the first step to peace. Voreth drank. The whiskey still burned, but somehow it tasted better this time. 6 months later, Admiral Voreth stood before the Concord Council. Behind him, a human delegation waited patiently. General Torres stood at their front, wearing a simple uniform and that same unreadable expression. The council had debated for weeks. Some wanted war. Some wanted isolation. But in the end, curiosity won. The motion passes, announced the council leader. Humanity is hereby granted provisional membership in the Concord of 12. May this alliance bring peace to the galaxy. Torres stepped forward and shook hands with the council leader. It was a human gesture, strange and primitive, but somehow appropriate. Later, at the celebration, Archivist Calm approached Torres with a question. I have studied your species for years, Cal said. I understand your history. I understand your violence. But one thing still confuses me. What's that? You were facing extinction. 12,000 ships came to destroy you. How did you stay so calm? How did you keep laughing? Torres thought about this for a moment. Then she smiled. We weren't calm. We were terrified. But we've been terrified before. Our ancestors survived ice ages and plagues and wars that killed millions. They kept going. They kept laughing. And they passed that stubbornness down to us. She looked out the window at the stars. The galaxy came to kill us. But we've been fighting extinction our whole existence. What's one more battle? Cal nodded slowly. She finally understood. Years later, she published her famous study on humanity. The final line became known across 1,000 worlds. They arrived broken, laughing at the void. They taught us that the darkness is not to be feared, only to be defied. And in their laughter, we found the courage to laugh with them. The galaxy had come for war. Humanity had answered with something far more powerful. Hope.